Okay, when you think Nevada, you probably picture the strip, right? Glitz, glamour, dazzling lights, maybe hitting a jackpot. But what if I told you that just, beyond that neon glow, there's this whole other side to the Silver State? A side that's, well, it's teeming with whispers from the past, chilling encounters, and a history so wild it almost feels like it has to be haunted.
It really does. And what's fascinating truly is how Nevada's paranormal reputation is just so deeply tied up with its unique history, its dramatic history. We're not just talking random ghost stories here. These tales, they often spring directly from those intense boom and bust cycles, the dangers of the Wild West, and all those really strong emotions tied to fortunes being made and lost, sometimes overnight. I mean, paranormal experts often point to Nevada as one of the most supernaturally active spots in the U.S.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. Nevada's most haunted places. We've looked through a whole stack of sources, travel guides, sure, but also paranormal investigation reports, local histories trying to get a handle on it. The goal here isn't just to list spooky spots, it's to understand why these legends stick around, what they tell us about Nevada's past. Think of this as your shortcut to getting the eerie lowdown. So let's start where a lot of these legends seem to begin, the ghost towns. Nevada has, what, over 600 of them?
That's right, over 600. Literal ghost towns. Places that exploded with the mining booms and then just faded, died out.
And the stories that come out of these places are, well, genuinely haunting.
They absolutely are. You look at these towns and you just see this intense human energy,
Yeah.
all focused on one thing, striking it rich, often fleetingly. Think about a rapid wealth, incredibly harsh conditions, a really high rate of violent death, accidents. It created these incredibly charged emotional landscapes,
Yeah.
intense places.
Which brings us straight to Rhyolite. This is an entire ghost town, right? About 120 miles west of Vegas near Death Valley.
Exactly. Rhyolite boomed practically overnight, early 1900s. Gold found in the hills nearby. Population swelled, over 5,000 people. But then, maybe just over a decade later, almost totally abandoned, just crumbling buildings left behind.
Okay, so what are people experiencing there now? What kind of activity?
Rhyolite feels like a classic case of what investigators call residual haunting. It's like an echo. Visitors often report seeing a brown shadow man. People think maybe a former prospector.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes a miner with a mule heading off into the hills. But these figures, they tend to just vanish as soon as you spot them.
So not interactive, just like a recording playing back.
Pretty much. It's like the place itself absorbed the intense emotions of the past, and these scenes just replay. Little interaction, just an echo.
That makes a certain kind of sense, an echo of that intensity. Okay, now, not too far from there, Goldfield, another boom town. And it has its historic cemetery.
Ah, yes, Goldfield. And its cemetery has a really unique twist. It's not just the headstones that were moved from the original town center. The bodies themselves were relocated, dug up, and moved. So this place holds, a real cross-section of the Wild West. Prostitutes, murder victims, prospectors. It's actually still an active cemetery today.
And isn't there some weird epitaph there? Something about library paste.
Oh, yeah, that's the one. A grown man who apparently died eating library paste. Bizarre.
Very strange. But the lore around the cemetery move is interesting, too.
Right. The local story goes that only the bodies moved, not the spirits. Which, if you believe spirits can be tied to a specific spot through trauma or strong emotion.
Then moving the bones doesn't necessarily move the ghost.
Exactly. Maybe the spirits are still tied to the original burial ground. Or perhaps they sort of followed the bodies. It really makes you wonder what actually anchors a spirit to a location.
That's a fascinating question. And speaking of anchors related to tragedy, the Yellow Jacket Mine near Virginia City, site of Nevada's worst mining accident.
A truly horrific event. 1869. Part of the Comstock lode boom. A fire broke out underground. Toxic fumes. At least 35 miners were killed. And the really tragic part, not all the bodies were ever recovered. They're still down there.
Oh, wow. So what do people report near the mine now?
Hikers, visitors near the entrance. They talk about orbs, strange sounds, cold spots. But the really chilling thing, some claim to hear the cries of trapped miners coming from inside the mine.
Actual cries. That sounds less like an echo and more like something else.
It does. Up to 11 distinct spirits are rumored to haunt that mine. The cries suggest something more active, maybe an intelligent presence, or at least a powerful emotional imprint that allows for some kind of interaction, not just a passive recording.
Okay, so if we look at Rhyolite, Goldfield, Yellow Jacket,
Yep.
what's the common thread? Why these mining sites?
I think it comes down to the sheer raw intensity of the human experience there. Lives lived right on the edge. Sudden riches, crushing poverty, and so often violent or accidental death, and especially when bodies aren't recovered, like at Yellow Jacket, or when deaths are particularly traumatic, it just seems to forge this incredibly strong spiritual connection, this tether to the place.
Whether it's residual, like rhyolite, or maybe more interactive, like Yellow Jacket seems to be.
Exactly. The common denominator is that immense human struggle, that unresolved energy. It just hangs heavy in those places.
That makes a lot of sense. Trauma, unresolved energy, powerful stuff.
Okay, so if that energy lingers in desolate ghost towns, what happens when we go indoors? Into the places where the fortunes were spent, the deals were made, and, well, sometimes where lives ended violently, the historic hotels and saloons. And you really can't talk about that without talking about Virginia City, right? It seems like a paranormal epicenter. Oh, absolutely. Virginia City is ground zero for a lot of this. And unlike the more residual stuff and abandoned mines, these social hubs often feature what investigators call intelligent hauntings. These are spirits that seem aware, they interact, they often have very specific, dramatic stories tied to why they're still around. They're not just echoes, they're almost like characters still playing out their parts.
Okay, let's start with one of the big ones. The Old Washoe Club. Opened way back in 1875. The Millionaires Club. Been on all the ghost hunting shows.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
And loaded with activity.
Yeah.
The Blue Lady is probably the most famous spirit there.
Right, the one on the spiral staircase.
That's her. Believed to be a former prostitute. She's seen as a full apparition and apparently shows up in photos quite a bit. She's not alone. There's an old prospector spirit said to hang out near the bar, moving drinks. They even leave a shot of whiskey out for him, and sometimes it disappears overnight. That's the story. And then there's Lena, another prostitute murdered on the third floor. Her killer supposedly committed suicide on the second, and even a teenage girl murdered down in the basement. It's just a collection of tragedies.
A real nexus of troubled spirits. Okay, just down the street, the Silver Queen Hotel, Virginia City's oldest, 1876. Saloon, wedding chapel now, but it's seen its share of rough times.
Rough is putting it mildly. Death, destruction, illegal activity, murder. It even served as a temporary morgue at one point.
Wow. And who's the resident ghost there?
That would be Rosie. Another prostitute, story goes, she slashed her wrists in the bathtub in room 11. Guests report all kinds of interactive stuff. Loud footsteps in carpeted hallways, but sounding like they're on wood. Jiggling doorknobs, doors opening and closing on their own. Disembodied voices.
And Rosie herself.
Sometimes. Seated at the top of a long staircase. That feels very much like an intelligent spirit making its presence known. They've even apparently captured ghostly images on the wedding chapel's night cameras.
Wild. Okay, moving from the public spaces to a private home, or what was one, the Mackay Mansion. Built before Nevada was even a state, 1859, home of a Silver King.
John Mackay, one of the big names from the Comstock Lode. Now it's a museum, but the original residents might still be around. Staff and guests report seeing apparitions all the time. A colonel in the kitchen, a servant still doing chores, a Victorian lady, thought to be Mrs. Mackay, lounging in the living room or wandering upstairs.
Mr. Mackay, too.
A shadowy figure, yeah, believed to be him. But maybe the most talked about were the two little girls, Emma and Lily. They're seen frequently.
Isn't there a celebrity story linked to them?
There is. Johnny Depp stayed there once and apparently claims he woke up to find one of the little girls standing at the foot of his bed.
Even Johnny Depp. Nevada's ghosts aren't shy. Okay, let's head out of Virginia City down to Tonopah, the jewel of the desert. It has some unusual haunted spots.
Tonopah is fascinating because despite its own rough history, some of its hauntings have this reputation for being almost friendly, interactive anyway. Take the Mizpah Hotel. Opened in 1907, real luxury for its time. Reopened beautifully in 2011.
And its most famous ghosts.
The Lady in Red. Another murdered prostitute, story goes, like on the 5th floor. But she's not necessarily menacing. People say she whispers sweet nothings to men in the elevator, runs her fingers through their hair.
Okay.
Leaves pearls on pillows, supposedly from her necklace that broke when she was killed. She's even been seen talking to a miner's ghost.
Huh. Friendly. Maybe a little forward.
Right. And there are playful children heard in the halls, a soldier's ghost too. The hotel actually keeps an official logbook for guests to record their sightings, which is pretty cool.
That shows they embrace it. But Tonopah also has something way creepier, maybe. The Clown Motel, right next to the old cemetery.
No, that's a double dreader, as you call it. Bills itself is America's scariest motel, and honestly, with over 3,000 clowns inside.
Yeah, even without ghosts, that's unsettling.
Totally. Clown-themed doors, rooms with clownified rock stars. That's a lot. And then right next door is the old Tonopah Cemetery. active only from 1901 to 1911. Packed with about 300 people, mostly victims of mining disasters, it ran out of space quickly.
So the theory is,
Many guests at the motel report feeling presences. The common assumption, or maybe just the creepy joke, is that spirits from the overcrowded cemetery next door have sought an upgrade to the motel.
an upgrade to a room full of clowns. Okay, that's a choice for the afterlife.
It's definitely a unique theory. The idea of spirits migrating based on proximity and energy is something you hear in paranormal circles, though.
Right, let's head east a bit to Pioche, the Overland Hotel and Saloon. Pioche was notoriously violent, wasn't it?
Unbelievably so. Famous for that stat. 72 murders in 1 year before anyone died of natural causes. Real Wild West lawlessness.
And the Overland.
The current building was rebuilt in 1948 after a fire. But the energy of that violent past definitely seems to linger. Ghost Adventures filmed there got significant results. It's so active that the proprietors actually promise ghost-free rooms if you request one.
Because otherwise...
Numerous reports, shadowy figures slamming doors, people being shaken awake in their beds, and it's likely connected to the nearby Boot Hill Cemetery, home to Murderers Row. Over 100 gunslingers buried there, often literally dying with their boots on, violently, sometimes buried so hastily their boots stuck out of the ground.
That's intense. Okay, one more saloon. The Pioneer Saloon in Good Springs. Oldest bar in southern Nevada, 1913.
Yep, and steeped in history. Original stamped tin wall still there, complete with bullet holes from a card game gone bad. A bartender committed suicide there. And famously, Clark Gable waited there for news about Carole Lombard after her plane crashed nearby on Mount Potosi.
So, lots of emotional residue. Who haunts the Pioneer?
They say it's got a whole mess of ghosts. The gambler who was shot, an entity called Ruby's Ghost. And yes, some say Carole Lombard herself lingers there.
And they embrace it, too.
Big time.
Yeah.
They offer haunted lockdown overnight experiences for paranormal investigators. What all these places, Washoe, Silver Queen, Mizpah, Overland, Pioneer, really highlight is how these personal stories, these tragic events, create such powerful, persistent, and often interactive hauntings. We're seeing specific individuals, right? Often with unresolved stories, seemingly engaging directly with living people. That makes them incredibly compelling.
Definitely. It's moved from echoes in the dust to, like, ongoing dramas. But Nevada's spooky side isn't just about the Wild West era, is it? It seems to bleed into more modern times, too.
Absolutely. The state's eerie vibe isn't confined to the distant past. It includes modern engineering marvels and even some, well, bizarre artistic expressions.
Like the Hoover Dam, Boulder City, an incredible feat of engineering dedicated in 1935, but also a site of tragedy during construction.
A huge undertaking. Nearly 5 years to build, and officially 112 people died during construction. Plus, those persistent rumors never confirmed, but they stick around that some workers who fell were actually entombed within the concrete. Over 4 million cubic meters of it.
That's a horrifying thought. And suicides, too.
Yes, unfortunately, suicides from the dam have also added to its tragic history and haunted reputation.
So what kind of phenomena are reported there, inside this massive structure?
Visitors, workers, security personnel, they report classic signs, cold spots, lights flickering when they shouldn't, items vanishing and then reappearing somewhere else, equipment acting up for no reason, and maybe the creepiest, phantom footsteps echoing down those long, empty corridors inside the dam.
It makes you wonder, can that sheer scale of collective tragedy, all those deaths in one project, create a kind of pervasive haunting, not just individual ghosts?
That's a really interesting question. Does the immensity of the event and the structure itself somehow trap or amplify that energy? It's certainly possible.
Okay, from massive engineering to curated creepiness. Zach Bagans, the Haunted Museum in Las Vegas.
Right, owned by the star of Ghost Adventures. He's gathered what he claims are some of the creepiest haunted items in the world and put them all in one place.
And the building itself has a history.
It does. It's a 1938 mansion, supposedly haunted by its former residents even before Bagans moved in. There are stories about occult rituals happening in the basement back in the day. You have to sign a medical waiver to go in, which tells you something.
A waiver? Wow. So what's inside? What are the big items?
Oh, all sorts. Haunted dolls. Peggy the doll is a famous one. A rocking chair linked to the Perron family case, the basis for The Conjuring. And maybe most notoriously, the original debug box.
The debug box. Remind us what that is.
It's this old wine cabinet believed in Jewish folklore to contain a malevolent spirit, a debug. It's got this reputation for causing serious misfortune, illness, strange events for anyone who owns it.
So he puts that in a house already potentially haunted, filled with other haunted objects.
Exactly. It's like creating a paranormal pressure cooker. Reports include seeing black-cloaked figures, creepy clowns. It's a very different kind of haunted location deliberately assembled. They even do late-night flashlight tours where you can borrow ghost hunting gear.
A whole different experience. And speaking of different lives, the International Car Forest of the Last Church, back in Goldfield. What is that?
It's public art,
Yeah.
but it's definitely eerie. Dozens of old cars, buses, vans, trucks, all stuck nose down or angled up out of the desert ground, covered in graffiti.
Like Stonehenge, but with junked vehicles.
Kind of. Spearheaded by a local resident, Mark Rippey, and artists Chad Sorg and Zach Sargent. They planted over 40 vehicles across 80 acres. It's considered the largest public art installation of its kind in the U.S.
Is it considered haunted in the traditional sense?
Not really with specific ghosts, no.
Yeah.
But the sight of it, these rusted hulks sticking out of the earth, sometimes painted with really unsettling images, it creates this incredibly strange sort of post-apocalyptic vibe, especially at sunset.
So it's more about the psychological effect, the atmosphere.
Exactly. It taps into this feeling of unease, decay, maybe the end of something. It blurs lines between art, landscape, and a very modern kind of psychological haunting. How an environment, even a deliberately altered one, can just feel deeply uncanny.
Okay, so from residual echoes in ghost towns to interactive spirits in saloons, collective trauma at the dam, curated horror in a museum, and eerie art, Nevada really does have the full spectrum.
It really does.
Yeah.
And if you try to connect all those dots, what keeps coming up?
Mm.
Immense human struggle, sudden, often violent death, intense emotions, hope, despair, greed, fear, and all of this playing out against these isolated, dramatic, often harsh landscapes. The desert itself almost feels like a character.
Right.
Nevada's history, the rapid booms and busts, the periods of lawlessness, the sheer unforgiving nature of the environment, it all seems to amplify these energies. It creates this unique hotbed for paranormal activity of all kinds. Thinking critically, you can see how these historical forces just converge to create this incredibly rich, dense tapestry of ghost stories. It shows how powerfully human drama can imprint itself onto a place.
And it's not just one kind of ghost or one type of story, is it? It's this whole mosaic. Prospectors, prostitutes, engineers, gamblers, artists, all leaving their mark somehow. This whole deep dive, it really shows how the past, the very fabric of Nevada's history, is still resonating today, still palpable. And whether you personally believe in ghosts or not, these stories are just such a compelling way, maybe an eerie way, but compelling to connect with that rich, tumultuous history. Gives you a glimpse into what people went through during these extreme times, how those moments might just stick around. We've covered so much ground today, from the absolute desolation of Rhyolite to the maybe overly friendly lady in red at the Mizpah, the whole cast of characters in Virginia City, the massive scale of the Hoover Dam, the weirdness of the car forest. So next time you think of Nevada, are you just going to see the neon lights of the Strip? Or are you maybe going to listen a bit closer, hear the faint cries of trapped miners, the whisper of a lady in red? Or maybe you just feel that strange silence from the car forest at dusk. Perhaps the real ghosts of Nevada are just those indelible marks left by its incredibly vivid, often violent, always dramatic past. Reminders that some stories, and maybe some spirits, just refuse to fade away. What part of Nevada's haunted history, whether it's the echoes or the encounters, makes you want to look a little deeper?
That's perfectly put. The Silver State holds so much more than just mineral wealth. It holds this profound, enduring connection to all the human drama that played out there. And it really does seem like those dramas are still playing out, maybe just in a different dimension. Understanding these stories, it really enriches our appreciation for the complex history that shapes the present, seen and unseen.